Today I'm answering questions about automatic exposure bracketing on Canon EOS R mirrorless cameras. If you want to know how to set up automatic exposure bracketing and how to save your settings to a custom shooting mode, check out my related videos. I'll put links up there in the corner. The first question is something that I can relate to because I've had this experience myself. And it's, why am I seeing a blinking star in the lower left of the screen? This also had me stumped when I first tried automatic exposure bracketing. When you see both the exposure level indicator and a star in the lower left of the screen flashing, the camera is trying to tell you that it's waiting for the next image in the sequence to be taken. In other words, it's waiting for you to do something. And in this case, it's pressing the shutter button. Often we use automatic exposure bracketing with a 2-second shutter delay because after pressing and letting go of the shutter button, the camera will automatically take all 3 bracketed shots, one after another, like so. But when the camera drive mode is set to single shooting, you need to press the shutter button again for each of the remaining shots. That's what the flashing star is saying. So keep pressing the shutter button until all the shots have been taken, and maybe next time use the 2-second shutter delay. Another scenario where you might see the flashing star is if you're in one of the continuous shooting modes and you take your finger off the shutter button before all the bracketed shots have been taken. The flashing star is the camera waiting for you to press the shutter button again. The next question is, if I use continuous shooting, will the camera carry on taking shots after the 3 bracketed images? Well, let's see. I've got my EOS R in automatic exposure bracketing mode and it's in high-speed continuous. Now let's see what happens when I press and hold the shutter button. Even though the camera is set to continuous shooting, it stops taking any further shots after the final bracketed shot. The next question also resonated with me because this had me stumped when I first started using automatic exposure bracketing. And the question is, how do you cancel automatic exposure bracketing? Well, there are 2 basic ways to cancel this. The easiest way is to simply turn off the camera, but this assumes that in the custom function menu, bracketing auto cancel is set to on. If your camera seems to be stuck in automatic exposure bracketing mode, check whether the bracketing auto cancel is set to off. If it is set to off, the automatic exposure bracketing settings will be retained even after you've turned off the camera and turned it back on again. Make sure bracketing auto cancel is set to on. The second way of cancelling automatic exposure bracketing is to do the reverse of the setup procedure. Press the menu button, go to the 3rd page of the red camera tab, select Expo Comp / AEB and press the Q Quick Selection button. Roll the vertical scroll wheel to the left until you have a single line at 0 on the exposure level indicator and the lower scale disappears. Tap on Set / OK or press the Q button. Then press the menu button to exit back to the shooting screen. Moving on to the third question, it's when is automatic exposure bracketing not available? If you find that you can't enable automatic exposure bracketing, it could be because of one or more settings you've currently got selected. Automatic exposure bracketing cannot be used with flash, HDR mode, or silent / electronic shutter. The next question brings in autofocus. Should I disable autofocus when using automatic exposure bracketing? Although I've never experienced any problems when using autofocus with automatic exposure bracketing, there is a chance, I suppose, of the focus shifting between exposures. To be safe, set the focus using autofocus and then change to manual focus on the lens, or alternatively, you could set autofocus to one shot. And that brings us to number 5 and the final question, which is, in which shooting modes can I use automatic exposure bracketing? Well, there are 5 shooting modes in which you can use automatic exposure bracketing. They are flexible priority, program, shutter priority, aperture priority, and manual exposure. The one that I use pretty much all of the time is manual. That's all for this FAQ video. Please like, share and subscribe if you found it useful. That helps me make more, and to make sure you don't miss any new videos, hit that notification bell. Finally, you can find in-depth articles on my website, DIYvideostudio.com. I'll put a link in the description. I wish you well and look forward to seeing you again next time.